Cities are built to bring people together, but not every city is designed to last. Around the world, millions of people live in places where poor planning, rapid growth, or environmental limits make daily life harder and less sustainable. Some cities struggle with flooding, others with heat, congestion, or weak infrastructure. In many places, their very design choices or locations created problems that cannot be solved easily. Yet people continue to live in these cities. In this series, we look at 8 real cities that were designed to fail and why people still depend on them. Jakarta, Indonesia, a sinking city. Jakarta is one of the clearest examples of a city built without long-term planning. More than 30 million people live in the greater area, but the city struggles with flooding, traffic, and even the ground sinking beneath it. Despite these problems, people stay because it's the center of government and business in Indonesia. The biggest issue is water. Jakarta was built on swampy land next to the Java Sea, which means it has always been at risk of flooding. Heavy rains often overwhelm rivers and drainage systems, especially since many of them are blocked by trash. Over the years, rapid construction has replaced wetlands and open land with concrete, leaving the city with very little space to absorb water. As a result, even short periods of rain can cause large floods across whole neighborhoods. The second problem is that Jakarta is sinking. In some parts of the city, the ground has dropped by several meters in just a few decades. This happens because many households and businesses rely on pumping groundwater. Since the city does not have enough piped water systems, people dig wells and drain underground reserves. Once the water is removed, the land above it starts to collapse. Rising sea levels make this worse, putting the northern parts of Jakarta at constant risk of being underwater in the future. Jakarta also has one of the worst traffic problems in the world. Public transport options have been limited, so millions of people depend on cars and motorbikes. Roads cannot keep up with this demand, and it's common for people to spend hours stuck in traffic every day. The wasted time and fuel slow down the city's economy and add to air pollution. With all these problems, it's reasonable to ask why people keep living there. The main reason is opportunity. Jakarta is where most of the jobs, schools, and government offices are. For many Indonesians, moving to Jakarta is the only way to find better work and access to important services, even though the city's living conditions are difficult. The government has announced plans to move the capital to a new city called Nusantara on Borneo Island. This might reduce some pressure on Jakarta, but millions of people will still remain. Jakarta shows what happens when a city grows too quickly without strong planning for water, housing, and transport. Phoenix, Arizona, a city in the desert. Even while Jakarta faces water from every direction, Phoenix has the opposite problem. It has almost none. After looking at a city that's sinking and flooding, now we move to a place that's struggling to exist in extreme heat and dryness. Phoenix, Arizona was built in the middle of the Sonoran Desert, and its growth has turned into a serious problem for both people and the environment. The main issue is heat. Phoenix regularly reaches summer temperatures above 43 degrees Celsius, with long stretches of dangerously hot days. The city's layout makes this even worse. Asphalt roads, wide highways, and endless housing developments trap heat and create what is known as the urban heat island effect. At night, when desert areas usually cool down, Phoenix stays hot because the built environment releases stored heat. This makes the city one of the hottest major urban areas in the United States, with rising risks of heat-related deaths each year. Water is another major challenge. A city in the desert has limited natural supply, but Phoenix relies heavily on rivers and reservoirs fed by the Colorado River. This water source is shrinking due to overuse and long-term drought in the region. Population growth has placed more pressure on water, with millions of people, golf courses, farms, and suburban neighborhoods competing for the same limited resource. Without drastic changes, experts warn that the city could face water shortages that will affect its ability to support its population. Phoenix is also highly spread out. The city and its suburbs cover a vast area, making cars almost the only option for getting around. Public transportation is limited compared to the size of the population, and most neighborhoods are designed around wide roads and parking lots instead of walkability. This design adds to air pollution, heat retention, and long commuting times. Despite these problems, people continue to move to Phoenix. The reasons are clear. Housing has often been cheaper than in coastal cities. There are many jobs in construction, technology, and healthcare, and retirees are drawn to the warm climate. The economy keeps expanding, which pulls more people in, even while the city becomes harder to maintain. Dhaka, Bangladesh. Population density nightmare. While flooding defines Jakarta and heat shapes Phoenix, Dhaka's biggest struggle comes from people. Far too many packed into too little space. Dhaka is one of the most crowded cities in the world, and its growth has created a serious urban crisis. The city has a population of more than 20 million people packed into a small area. On average, more than 40,000 people live in every square kilometer, a level of density that makes basic services hard to manage. Streets, markets, and public spaces are always congested. There's simply not enough room for everyone, and the result is daily overcrowding that affects transportation, housing, and health. Traffic is one of the most visible problems. Dhaka does not have a modern transport system that can handle so many people. Public buses are overcrowded, and there is very little infrastructure for walking or cycling safely. Many people rely on rickshaws, motorbikes, or small cars, which fill the roads and create constant gridlock. It can take hours to travel just a few kilometers. The traffic also increases air pollution, which already ranks among the highest in the world. Housing is another major challenge. With so many people arriving from rural areas in search of work, the demand for housing has far outpaced supply. Many residents live in informal settlements, often without proper sanitation, clean water, or stable electricity. Overcrowded housing makes public health risks worse, as diseases spread faster in tight living spaces. Basic city services also struggle under the pressure. Waste management, drainage, and water supply systems were not designed for this level of population. Flooding during the monsoon season quickly overwhelms drainage canals, leaving many neighborhoods underwater. Healthcare facilities are also overloaded, forcing many residents to go without proper treatment. Even with these problems, Dhaka continues to grow. The city is the economic hub of Bangladesh, home to its government, financial sector, and the massive garment industry that employs millions. For many families, moving to Dhaka is the only option to find jobs and education, even if the living conditions are extremely difficult. Dhaka shows the problems that come when a city grows too fast without space, infrastructure, or planning to support its people. Extreme population density has turned daily life into a struggle, but people remain because it offers opportunities they cannot find elsewhere. Brasilia, Brazil. Aesthetic over functionality. After looking at Dhaka's overcrowding, here is a very different case. Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, does not suffer from extreme density or lack of space. Its problems come from design choices. The city was planned and built from scratch in the 60s with a focus on modern architecture and visual appeal. While it looks impressive from above, its design makes daily life harder for the people who live there. The layout of Brasilia is shaped to resemble the outline of an airplane. Government buildings, residential zones, and commercial districts were carefully separated into different areas. The goal was order and beauty, but in practice it created a city that's not convenient for daily use. Essential places like schools, shops, and workplaces are spread out, making it difficult for residents to move between them without a car. This leads to one of the city's biggest problems: transportation. Unlike older cities that grew around walking paths and public squares, Brasilia was built around wide roads and large open spaces. The city lacks natural walkability. Distances are too long and sidewalks are limited. Public transportation has never been developed enough to cover these gaps, so people depend heavily on cars. Traffic jams are now a regular part of life, even though the city was originally planned to prevent congestion. Another issue is the lack of human-centered spaces. Many neighborhoods in Brasilia were designed with uniform apartment blocks and strict zoning. While these areas look neat on the map, they do not create vibrant communities. Everyday services are often far from homes, and public spaces feel empty compared to older organically grown cities. This design can make the city feel isolating, even though it was built to represent progress and unity. Despite these weaknesses, Brasilia continues to function as the national capital. It houses Brazil's government institutions, major embassies, and a growing number of businesses. People move there for jobs in administration, law, and commerce. For many, it's the best place to build a career, even if urban design makes daily life less practical. Cairo, Egypt. Traffic chaos and pollution. However, Cairo shows us another side of poor urban design. Instead of too much planning, Cairo suffers from uncontrolled growth. As one of the largest cities in Africa and in the Middle East, with more than 20 million residents in the metropolitan era, it faces daily struggles with traffic, air quality, and overcrowding. The most visible issue in Cairo is traffic. The city was never designed to handle such a large population and the millions of cars that now fill its streets. Public transport exists, including buses and a metro system, but it's not enough to meet demand. Roads are constantly congested, and driving in Cairo is unpredictable, with few enforced rules and heavy use of informal transport like microbuses. It's common for people to spend several hours stuck in traffic every day, making simple commutes exhausting. The traffic crisis feeds directly into Cairo's population problem. With so many vehicles on the road and limited regulation, air quality in the city is consistently poor. Factories around the city add to the problem, releasing pollutants that combine with vehicle emissions to create a thick haze. This has earned Cairo a reputation as one of the most polluted major cities in the world. The poor air quality poses serious health risks, especially for children and the elderly, with high rates of respiratory disease reported. Housing is another part of the challenge. Rapid population growth has outpaced the city's ability to provide affordable formal housing. As a result, millions live in informal settlements built without proper infrastructure. These neighborhoods often lack reliable water supply, waste collection, and safe roads, putting even more pressure on the city's already stretched systems. Despite these difficulties, Cairo remains the center of Egypt. It's home to the government, universities, hospitals, and most of the country's economic activity. For many Egyptians, moving to Cairo is the only way to find stable work, education, and healthcare, even though the city's conditions are stressful. The cultural importance of Cairo also plays a role, as it is seen as the historic and modern heart of the nation. Meanwhile, Cairo is not the only city with complicated issues. Las Vegas, USA, extreme water scarcity. This brings us to Las Vegas, a city with a very different challenge. Unlike Cairo, where population pressure overwhelms the streets and air, Las Vegas struggles with the basic resource that keeps any city alive: water. Built in the Mojave Desert, Las Vegas is one of the driest major cities in the United States, yet it has grown into a hub for entertainment, tourism, and rapid housing development. The core problem is location. Las Vegas receives less than 10 centimeters of rainfall per year, which is nowhere near enough to support more than 2 million residents and millions of annual visitors. To survive, the city relies heavily on water from the Colorado River, stored in Lake Mead, but the river is shrinking because of overuse, climate change, and long-term drought across the American Southwest. Lake Mead has reached record low levels in recent years, raising serious concerns about the city's long-term water supply. Urban growth makes the situation worse. Suburban expansion has added thousands of new homes, golf courses, hotels, and shopping centers. Many of these developments require large amounts of water for landscaping, cooling, and daily use. Although Las Vegas has made efforts to conserve, such as banning grass lawns in some areas and recycling water, the demand remains enormous compared to the limited natural supply. Energy use is another factor linked to the city's desert location. The extreme heat, often over 40 degrees Celsius in the summer, forces residents, businesses, and casinos to rely heavily on air conditioning. This adds to the city's overall environmental footprint and places additional stress on the water system, since some power plants also depend on water for cooling. Despite these challenges, Vegas continues to grow. The city attracts new residents with jobs in hospitality, construction, and entertainment. Tourists bring in billions of dollars each year, fueling the local economy. For many, the lifestyle, low taxes, and opportunities outweigh the risks tied to its water problems. Lagos, Nigeria, uncontrolled urban sprawl. Where Las Vegas is defined by drought, Lagos is defined by growth. Not the careful kind, but sprawl that stretches far beyond what the city can handle. As one of the fastest growing cities in the world, Lagos has expanded far beyond what its infrastructure can support, leading to major problems with housing, transportation, and basic services. The population of Lagos has exploded in just a few decades. Today, more than 20 million people live in the metropolitan area, and thousands continue to arrive every day in search of work. This rapid growth has pushed the city outward in all directions. Farmland, wetlands, and coastal areas have been turned into unplanned neighborhoods, often built without proper roads, drainage, or utilities. The result is a patchwork city where services cannot keep up with the pace of expansion. Housing is one of the most pressing issues. Formal housing projects cannot meet demand, so many people live in informal settlements. Some neighborhoods are overcrowded and built in unsafe areas prone to flooding. Basic needs like clean water, electricity, and sanitation are often unreliable or missing. These conditions create health risks and make it difficult for the city to manage public safety. Transportation is another serious problem. Lagos was not designed for the number of cars, buses, and motorcycles now on its roads. Traffic congestion is constant, with commuters often spending several hours each day in gridlock. Public transportation systems are limited, leaving most people to depend on informal minibuses and motorbike taxis. The lack of organized systems makes travel unpredictable and adds to air pollution. The city's sprawl also strains essential services. Waste collection, drainage systems, and healthcare facilities cannot cover all areas equally. During the rainy season, poorly planned neighborhoods flood easily, creating major disruptions. Overcrowded hospitals and schools struggle to serve the rapidly growing population, leaving large parts of the city underserved. Still, Lagos continues to grow because it's the economic engine of Nigeria. It's home to major industries, ports, banks, and cultural centers. People move there for work and opportunity, even if living conditions are difficult. Venice, Italy. Romantic, but sinking under rising seas. Unlike Lagos, Venice is not expanding outward. Instead, it's slowly being swallowed by the sea. Famous for its canals and architecture, Venice is one of the most recognizable cities in the world, but it is also one of the most fragile. Rising seas, frequent flooding, and the weakness of its foundations now threaten its survival. Venice was built centuries ago on more than 100 small islands in a lagoon of the Adriatic Sea. Wooden piles were driven into the mud to support stone buildings, creating a city that seemed impossible, but became a symbol of human achievement. However, this foundation is unstable. Over time, the ground has sunk, and now global sea level rise is making the situation worse. Flooding, locally known as acqua alta, has become a normal part of life in Venice. Even small storms or high tides can send water into streets, squares, and homes. Shops and residents raise platforms to move around, but this is only a temporary fix. Saltwater also seeps into the buildings, damaging foundations and slowly eroding historic structures. What was once an occasional event has become more frequent and more destructive. Tourism, which supports much of the local economy, adds to the city's challenges. Millions of visitors arrive each year, putting heavy pressure on infrastructure. Cruise ships, until recently allowed to dock close to the city, worsened erosion and damaged the lagoon ecosystem. While tourism brings jobs and income, it also makes it harder for Venice to manage its fragile environment. The Italian government has tried to respond with large engineering projects, such as the MOSE flood barrier system, designed to block high tides from entering the lagoon. While it has provided some short-term protection, critics argue it cannot solve the long-term issue of sea level rise. As global waters continue to rise, barriers may only delay the inevitable. Despite the risks, people continue to live in Venice because of its history, beauty, and cultural significance. For locals, it's home, and for visitors, it's a unique place unlike any other city on Earth. In the end, some of these cities are sinking, some are drying out, and others are choking on their own size. Yet people remain because cities are more than just buildings and roads. They're centers of work, culture, and identity. The real lesson is clear. Once a city is built, its flaws are almost permanent. The challenge for the future is to design cities that people can live in without fighting against nature, poor planning, and their own foundations.